So this is step 1 of getting into property. To give you a little sneak peek into what we'll be talking about today, Connor and I have made some really exciting moves in the last few weeks. We are taking the leap and starting our property journey. We are looking to buy an investment property, and today I want to go through with you the initial steps of what it took to get started, what we needed to know, who we needed to speak to, all of those sort of like overwhelming initial steps that you need to get past before you can kind of make any real moves in buying property. This is the first of a series about buying property, and I'm really excited to finally be in a position to share with you what we have learnt so far. It's been a long time coming, and we are so excited to finally be here. We haven't done it without help. That is a massive disclosure, and I will go into the details of what sort of help we have received. Like you know, I am all about being completely transparent financially, and I really find it bizarre when people have a lot of shame and guilt and embarrassment about getting help, getting into the property market. Like, everyone knows how difficult it is to get into the property market, and if you can get help, take it. And if you can't and you do it by yourself, that is huge. That is monumental. That is something that can never be taken away from you. I don't think there's a single person in the entire world who wouldn't take help if it was offered to them. Anyway, we're going to dive into all of that, all of the initial steps, what it takes to buy property, why we chose an investment property, all of it. In these chats, I really want you to feel like you and I are out for coffee. We're really, really dear friends, and I'm going to tell you the actual truth of what it takes, of what we did, the help we got. I'm going to tell you everything I possibly can so that there's no smokescreen, there's no ambiguity. You know exactly how I did it and like what you can take from my journey into your own. It's like I want you to feel like I'm like leaning in, I'm kind of whispering to you like in excited hushed tones, like this is how we did it. This is the steps, and this is like not everyone shares the intimate details of that. And I want you to feel like you're getting the full, no fluff, no nonsense rundown of how we're operating financially. We have had an absolutely delightful last few days. Connor and I went away for our anniversary by ourselves, and then we just spent a lovely Friday evening at my sister's place with Henry and all of the cousins. So we are feeling very refreshed, like a load has been taken off our shoulders. I'll get into our holiday and I'll tell you all about it. Okay, so like I said, I'm feeling very refreshed. Full disclosure, I feel a little bit dusty. My sister and I stayed up chatting until 2 a.m. last night, so we're very tired. But it was such a wonderful last few days. Before I get into where we're at, how the last few days have gone, all of that, there is something else I really wanted to talk to you about. And I wanted to get your opinion, or I don't know, just want you to lend me your ears to talk this through, because I don't know who else to talk to about it. But I have started to doubt myself sharing so vulnerably online. There has been a few instances in social media in the last few weeks, or last month maybe now, with Australians who talk about personal finance. What I have seen is pretty much a classic Australian culture of tearing down people who have become successful and who are maybe not so relatable anymore, financially speaking. And I feel nervous because right now I'm coming to you at the beginning of our journey. I'm coming to you from a point of like, there are going to be lots of other people out there right now in my position. It's like not feeling financially stable, feeling like we're hanging on for dear life, have big dreams. But I know that I will eventually reach financial peace and reach financial freedom. And I want to be able to continue sharing that with you. And I want to be able to continue sharing that without fear of being torn down and without fear of like, well, now I can't share my life fully with you because people will start to feel jealous, or it'll be a sore point, or like, I don't know, there's this real camaraderie at the beginning, and then there's this like, oh, now you're different. And I see it a lot in real life as well, like people who have come into wealth, whether that's through their business or I mean, that's the main example that I know, like, you know, they're through their own hard work, like from investments or business, and they are suddenly looked upon by their friends or by people they've just met with a kind of jealousy. I think that's what it is. I don't think people would necessarily be able to identify that that's what they were feeling, that they were feeling jealous. But they kind of look on with this like disdain, and they feel like they have this right to kind of mock or tear down or speak poorly about these people because they now have money. And I want to create a space here in this pocket of the world, in this little corner of the internet. I want to create a space where we feel safe to share our wins as well as our losses. It can feel scary to share your losses online because you're vulnerable and if you've made mistakes and whatnot. But it's like, to me, it's more scary to share your wins because there is a lot of jealousy and this like hate on people who are wealthy. And I want to create a space of the internet where it's safe, where you and I, we want the same things and we want the best for each other. I want you to win as much as I want me to win. I want us all to like come up together. That is my biggest hope, is that every single person that I catch up with through this podcast, my biggest hope is that they all win as much as I do, if not more. I really want this to be a safe space where we can talk about our wins and where I can continually document my journey, and I don't get to a point where I go, it's not relatable anymore, because I'm not really here to be relatable. I'm here to share you the truth, and I'm here to be in the trenches with you and to get out of the trenches with you, to really sit in the mud and then push through it. And I want us to do that together. Anyway, this is a really long way of saying I've really thought about this for the last 2 weeks or longer, maybe 3 weeks. And I've come to the decision to keep going. But I was really nervous, and I did feel like I started to lose my voice a little bit. Like, I posted things and then I deleted them. And then because I suddenly was like, how are people going to view this? And I didn't know how to show up authentically anymore because I was so afraid of the negative, perception of talking about money and pursuing wealth. And I really think it just comes from like a misconception. It just comes from a misconception of wealth, and that like this deep-seated belief that all people who are wealthy or who pursue wealth do it with bad intentions and are evil and don't care about the world and don't care about the people around them. And like, that could not be the farthest from the truth. Like, the main reason why Connor and I want to build wealth is to be outrageously generous with our time and our resources, to be able to provide not just for our immediate family, for our children, but for our wider family, for our friends, for the people around us, and the people that we never even meet or interact with. That is our like end goal, is to be able to not only give money, but to give time and to show up with time, our most valuable, precious resource, time. That is what we want to be able to give to people. So anyway, I just wanted to talk to you about that a little bit because it's something that's been weighing on me quite heavily. Like, this whole controversy online, I haven't even looked into it that much because it just gives me icky feelings. it becomes like the poor versus the wealthy. And I want to bridge that so that we can all become wealthy and we can all pursue wealth and we can all benefit from each other rising up. Anyway, hopefully if you're here, you want the same thing, because like, you are the people I want to talk to. You are the people that I want to sit and have coffee with and dream together and share tips and like just have fantastic conversations about how to build wealth and get excited about it, and for it to be like this fun, safe place. I think I've said enough on that now, but I'm nervous and I'm a bit scared, but I feel like the net positive is too much to let that fear stop me from doing this, because I think that in being real and vulnerable and sharing everything that I possibly can, like, you have so much to gain from that. And so I feel such a strong pull to give you that gift of information, to give you that gift of transparency, and to let you see someone else struggling through it and like doing it anyway. But enough about that. Let's talk about the holiday. Let's talk about our wonderful week that just was. I could not be happier, honestly. It was just a fantastic few days. So Connor and I's 4th wedding anniversary, when we got married, we made a commitment to each other that no matter what, we would go away every year, even if it's for a night, even if it's in the dodgiest, whatever. Like, just, it doesn't have to be big and fancy, but we need to get away because we need to invest in our marriage. It is the best, biggest, most important thing in our life, our marriage. Your life partner is like, it's so crucial for you and for everyone around you that you and your partner, your husband or your wife, have a strong foundation. That is like our utmost priority, is our relationship, because a good relationship between husband and wife, mum and dad, parents, whoever, is going to be the best thing that you can give to your children and to your friends and to your wider group of family members. It's just the best thing that you can possibly do. In September last year, when we both had started full-time work, we set ourselves a big financial goal. Middle of January, we wanted to have $25,000 saved. In order to do that, we needed to save like 52% of our income, and we needed to put our heads down, and like, we could not spend outside of our budgeted expenses. So from September until January, we had like no spend months outside of our budgeted expenses, and we really stuck to it. Like, we were really good. We were so good that even within our budgeted expenses, that we didn't end up spending all of the money allocated in our budgeted expenses. Every fortnight or so, there was money left over in entertainment or in transport or groceries. Not groceries. I think we spent groceries every single fortnight, but we had different categories where there was a little bit of money left over. And what we decided to do was, as a reward for hitting our savings target, as well as aligning with the timing of our 4th wedding anniversary, we decided that we would save for a holiday. So whenever we had leftover money in our entertainment, our fun account, or whatever category it was in our budget at the end of the fortnight, we would put that money into a Smile account. The Smile account is like our holiday account, and that's what we use to go away. We have not put money in there for a really long time because our income was so low. So for us to be able to save this money while we were already saving hardcore for our emergency fund was a big deal. Like, I'm so proud of the fact that it got to January and we had $450 approximately in our Smile account. I was like blown away, because prior to that, we were spending up to or over our budgeted expenses. And just like with a shift of mindset, we suddenly were able to rein in our spending in a way that felt not that difficult. It was difficult, I'm not going to lie to you. There were times where I was like, oh, I really need to just buy this, or like, it is hard. And I remember Connor turning to me and saying, "You're doing really well. You haven't bought anything in a really long time. keep going. Like, he was like, I see you and I see you struggling and I know you really want this, but like, just remember the larger goal. I think that was in December when we were Christmas shopping for our KK, and I was like, I just dying to buy some things for Henry and for myself and for Connor, and I wanted to, you know, get proper Christmas presents for each other. And he was like, I see you, but like, we've got this, we're so close. Like, middle of December, our goal is middle of Jan, like, we're so close. And like, come middle of Jan, we'll loosen the reins a little bit, we'll work into the budgeted expenses a little bit of spending money, because I can see that this is doing the sprint season, and this was a hardcore sprint, but you can't do the sprint season forever. Basically, by the end of Jan, we had hit our savings goal, which was awesome. We hit 25k in our emergency fund, and then we also had $450 saved up in our Smile account. We also got given an Airbnb voucher. That's what we asked for as like our KK gift, because we knew that we wanted to go away. So that is honestly one of the best gifts you can give, is an Airbnb voucher. I just think that's so just great. Like, wonderful gift, especially for parents or a couple, even a single person. I just think it's great. Connor got a little bit iffy about wanting to go, because it would mean having to take leave, and he really didn't want to, and I totally understand. He wants to show his work. He's still in his probation period. He really wants to show his work that like, he cares about this job, and he's not just like, he's in it, and he really wants to do really well. So he didn't want to take leave anymore. And I am the same. Like, I'm still only 6 months into my role, not even 5 months, I think. And so I am also very much in the space of like, having to prove myself, working really hard, taking leave. It's not an ideal time. So for a little while there, I was like, yeah, okay, maybe we just won't. Maybe we won't do it. We can just go for a night on the weekend. But over summer, weekend rates on Airbnb near the beach are outrageously expensive. So then I was like looking at camping, but all of the places near the beach that I knew were sold out, like booked out. Anyway, it was a whole thing. Eventually, I just said to him, I'm wasting so much time. I'm looking constantly. I don't know what dates we're going. You know, are we going? Are we not going? What do you want to do? And he was like, I don't want to go. He's like, obviously I want to go, but I don't want to take leave. And I was like, okay, disappointed. So disappointed. But I agreed to that. But a week later, it was still really on my mind, and something wasn't sitting well with me. There were two things. One, we had made a decision and promised to ourselves before we got married that our marriage came first before anything else, and that we would go away no matter what for our anniversary, because it was an investment in our relationship, and it was time and space in an intentional way to look after our marriage, to give it the water, the nurture that it needs. The other thing was that in October, we had made the agreement that if we saved really hard and if we hit our goals, we would go away. And so I was starting to feel like, if we don't do what we say we're going to do, even the things that are fun, if we don't keep those promises to each other and to ourselves, we're never going to trust ourselves again. And so next time we try and do a sprint season of saving, do you think we're going to be able to follow through? Like, if we say, okay, let's do a sprint season of saving, and at the end, in 6 months, we'll loosen the reins, we'll go away, or we'll, you know, whatever, we can buy the thing. We're not going to believe ourselves. We're not going to trust ourselves, and we're going to not be able to commit to that sprint season. I think showing up in the way that you say you're going to show up is so important, even when it's the things that are fun or that are, you know, for yourself, and not like, you know, financial or fitness, or, you know, not that sort of like discomfort. It's kind of an odd thing to have to force yourself to go away and to do something fun and relaxing. When I sat down and I said this to Connor, I was like, I'm worried. Like, our relationship is, like, at its core amazing, but on the surface struggling. Like, we're living with my in-laws. We have no space. We're not like living separate on the same dwelling. Like, we're in the house, we're in it, and like, they're great. It's wonderful to live with, don't get me wrong, but it does take a toll on your relationship. You don't have the space, the time, the freedom to have conversations that you need to have, or even just to like be with each other in that closeness that you get when you're living on your own. I sat down with him and I was like, I still believe that we need to go away. And I really want to let you know that it's not coming from a childish, like, I need a holiday kind of space. It's coming from we live with other people and we desperately need this time for our marriage. And it's easy to see the financial gain of saving money. It's not easy to see the future gain from investing time and money into your marriage. It feels like indulgent when actually it's an investment into something that will give back tenfold. We ended up sitting down that night and booking our holiday, and it was the best decision ever. But what we ended up doing was we actually took more leave than originally planned because it was a lot cheaper to go midweek. It also meant that we didn't have to ask people to look after Henry over a weekend. They could just do the mornings and the evenings because he was at daycare for the middle of the day. It meant that we didn't miss out on a weekend with Henry. That's precious Henry time that we were going to be missing out on, that we felt torn about. Going midweek, other than the fact of having to take leave, was all adding up to being the best option. I'm aware that I've just spoken for half an hour about not what we wanted to talk about today. But anyway, it might be a long episode. The problem was that Connor is not in the position to be able to just take 3 days of leave and not work. Even I had to work a little bit on the first day, but I was able to tie up loose ends and whatnot that first day. But Connor had to work a little bit throughout the 3 days, which was okay. It wasn't terrible. I think I am a little bit better at compartmentalizing than Connor. So while I'm at work, work is the most important thing. And even when I'm at home, it's a little bit like, you know, I'll prioritize work if I need to. But when it comes to like, we're going away, we're spending money, we're spending time, we're asking people to look after Henry, like, we've decided to do this, so let's do it properly. So I was able to compartmentalize a little bit. Connor was not, because he's feeling worried about his job. I found that hard, to be completely honest with you. I found it hard when he was constantly like, oh, I just got another email, better call, better whatever. It was like a constant back and forth. Like, he'd come to relax, and then he'd have to go, like 10 minutes later, have to go back onto his computer and then come back to relax, then half an hour later back on the computer. So it felt a bit disjointed. I really had to bite my tongue a lot and sort of say, we're here, we're doing the best that we can. You just need to let him do what he needs to do so that he's not stressed, because you piling on stress is not going to help. But once we kind of got in the flow of that, it was nice. We had a really special time. We were in a beautiful house with a beautiful pool and a beautiful view. It was amazing. On my TikTok and Instagram reels, I will do a cost breakdown of the entire weekend. So follow me there, Money by Majella, and you can see exactly how much we spent, food, everything inclusive. Okay, what were we saving for? What was our savings goal? We needed 25k in the bank by mid-Jan, because that was the absolute max that we could save outside of our budgeted expenses. And we really are in a sprint season right now, not just to get ourselves out of a financial hole. You can go back and watch my first few episodes to understand what that financial hole was, but it was a pretty big one. As of September, we entered an absolute sprint season in terms of saving money to feel secure, but also to move forward. Our emergency fund is $21,000, and so we wanted to have 25k so that we had our emergency fund and we were on track to saving for property. If you listen to my previous episodes, you'll know that everything that we had banked for a deposit, we put through investments, which fell through. It was pretty devastating. You can go back and listen to those episodes if you're interested to understand why we are starting from scratch in our late 20s as like people who consider themselves financially responsible people. But yes, so our emergency fund and like starting the property train, that was what we were saving really hard for. We hit our emergency fund, we had the extra $3,000, $4,000, so $25,000. There's a few reasons why property has become the priority for us as a mode of reaching financial freedom and financial peace. Previously, as younger adults in our early 20s, we were trying to be entrepreneurs because we believed that being entrepreneurs was the key to wealth and financial freedom, which we still do believe, but we have a little bit more of like a nuanced understanding of what you need in order to put all of your eggs into being an entrepreneur, into that entrepreneurship basket. So we were really focused on being entrepreneurs. Our income was very low, so we didn't have the servicing power, and we had invested our like deposit as such into other property ventures, hoping that it would kind of build on itself in a short time frame, like within 5 to 7 years. And then we would get that money out and it would be enough to be a deposit. So we had invested $60,000 collectively amongst these investments. And, you know, they were set to return over $100,000. I think it was $120,000 we were expecting to receive in March of 2023. Anyway, I'm not going to go back into all of those details, but that was kind of our play for property. And like in the meantime, while that $60,000 that we had saved was like supposedly going to be doing its work and like turning into a deposit for us, we were happy to take an income drop and really work heavily on the business and like build up the income through the business so that a bank could look at us as entrepreneurs and see that we could service a loan. Because as entrepreneurs, they need to see like 2 years. I don't know exactly what it is. You'll need to speak to a broker, but most banks need to see like, I think it's like 2 years. The thing is that 2 years of like consistent income. The thing is that we didn't actually do our research. And when I think about this, I'm like, we were so diligent in researching every other little thing when it came to finance. We researched everything, but for some reason, property felt big and overwhelming and was like, future us, we'll think about that later. We can't get in right now. We didn't bother to check, but we were like, we can't get in right now, future problem. Let's just focus on investing in the stock market. Let's focus on entrepreneurship, the things that we felt like we could control and that we could do right now. That has shifted a lot for us. Funnily enough, our financial position is worse, although we now have good incomes, which, you know, will dig us out of this hole quite quickly because our shovel is much larger, but our savings is a lot lower because those investments fell through. But I think what has happened is because we went through such financial stress whilst trying to be entrepreneurs, we now understand that in order to take the risk of being an entrepreneur, you need to do it from a place of stability, emotional stability, financial stability. You cannot take a risk in business if you're not feeling stable in those areas. I mean, from my experience anyway, it was a big lesson on our personalities and on how we need stability. Like that has to be a core value for us. The thing is, it's not really a choice. It just is a core value because it really impacted how we were able to perform as entrepreneurs. I'm still doing entrepreneurs like this as if I didn't take myself seriously as an entrepreneur. We can talk about that another time. But anyway, sorry for anyone listening and not watching. I'm still saying entrepreneur with quotation marks. So I'm obviously still like a bit shy to say that that's what we were doing, that we were running our business and trying to be business owners. I need to get over that. Let's talk about that another time. Reflecting on what went down in the last 2 years, we now understand that we need stability. Something that can give us financial stability is property. Having a strong property portfolio with the right strategy, not over leveraging yourself, because property can be risky too. So I'm not saying that it's super safe. It's just if you have the right strategy, it can be a more safe avenue of wealth building. So we kind of mapped out our wealth building strategy for our life overall. So instead of being a little bit haphazard about it, we have the 3 prongs. We have property, we have business, and we have ETFs. Basically, we see our ETF investing as kind of like long-term, almost how you would see super. Like you put it in, you don't touch it. We're not trading. We just chuck it all in there, and like that is a compounding interest kind of thing that will just go up over the next 60 years. That's how we see our ETF investing. Then we have our property, which is going to be the financial prong underpinning our business ventures. The way we see it is that in order to be proper wealthy, to have wealth that equals freedom, wealth that equals outrageous generosity in time and resources, you need to be a business owner so that you can have control over your time and a large enough income. Now, that doesn't happen in the first 10, 15 years. Maybe even longer. It's a long-term play, and you have to be able to take a lot of risk for a long time in trying to be a business owner. So if you see it as like a pyramid, the absolute pinnacle of what we're aiming for is freedom. Freedom to be outrageously generous with time, with resources. Our biggest desire in life is to have the freedom to be outrageously generous with time and resources. To have the freedom to pick our kids up from school and not be panicked that you have to like make up that time, or to like actually show up to school events, or to, kick a footy around with our kids on the weekend, go to their games, be around so that when they need someone to talk to, we're there. And we're not just there at that time, we've been able to foster a relationship with them where they feel comfortable to chat to us. My main thing in life is to have a relationship with my children and my husband for the rest of my life, like a good relationship, and to be able to demonstrate generosity for them and for the people around me, and for our children to see us be generous with our time and our resources. That is like the most important thing to us. If we work backwards from that, the way Connor and I see it is that business ownership, entrepreneurship, is the thing that is going to bring us wealth and control over our time. In the last year or so, we have really come to the conclusion for ourselves in our own situation that property is the key to entrepreneurship. Let me unpack what I mean by that. In order to be a successful business owner and successful in entrepreneurship, you need to be able to take big risks, financially and emotionally and from a business standpoint. We had tried to take those big risks for the last 5 years, and we realized that we were not able to take risks in our business because we were not operating from a place of stability in our emotional life or financially speaking. What we have come to realize is that the right property strategy will be able to replace our income. The right property strategy will be able to give us that financial security that we need in order to take risks with our business. I think it's really important here to realize why we're pursuing business. It's something that we're very interested in. It just speaks to us, both Connor and I, and we've known for a really long time that business entrepreneurship is where we see ourselves long term. And so when we started and failed in business in the last 5 years, we have reflected and tried to determine why that was. And we have understood from our behavior and from our outcomes that we really need to be able to take risks from a place of security. And so we see property as underpinning our business ventures. We have a very big dream to be outrageously generous with our time and resources, to be able to really live our life with our children on a farm, near a beach. It doesn't really matter. I mean, that is the dream. But the bigger dream is the time. It's the time to spend with our children. Like I said before, time is our most valuable resource. If we can be generous with our most valuable resource, like that is winning at life. That's how I see real, true success. And we believe that business and entrepreneurship is the way that we're really going to get there. And we'll get there quicker than, say, like a really successful 9-to-5 career. So what have been the initial steps to take us from little Majella and Connor, who were like, property is a far away scenario, to now where we are literally about to buy our first investment property? We're getting ready to buy our first investment property. The last 20 months have been the knowledge accumulation phase for us. We are learning as much as we can through podcasts, YouTube, books, our jobs, networking. Everything is a learning opportunity. This is not just about property, but about wealth building, business, being a generally good human. We are literally in a learning accumulation phase. When I first had Henry, I had a lot of time, not to do things, but I had a lot of time to listen to podcasts or to audiobooks, because I was walking or driving Henry to sleep a lot. He was a terrible sleeper. And so that gave me the chance to listen to quite a few podcasts. I became quite certain quite quickly that property was going to be the thing that took us from financial stress to financial security and financial peace. It took me a little while to convince Connor that property was A, achievable for us where we were, and B, that it's something that we should be putting our money, our mental space, our efforts into right now. Connor was still very much on the acquiring business, entrepreneurship world, which to me at that time, after just going through so much emotional and financial turmoil with a young baby and no income, like screamed high risk, emergency, fire, stop. Like, no, turn away, wrong way, go back. We were in a little bit of a misalignment there because he was so focused on business and entrepreneurship, and I had moved away from that world, and I was so focused on property, and I was eager to learn everything that I could about property in this space. So we had a misalignment there where it came to our wealth goals. We had the same goal, we just had started to veer as to how we were going to get to that goal. And that actually causes a lot of fracture because we're one family unit. We share our finances. We have shared goals. We can't have a different opinion on how to get there. We needed to come together. We needed our paths to realign. Those few years before Henry was born and then in early postpartum, it was a super traumatic time, and it really threw me back into a scarcity mindset. I've spoken about this before, but this scarcity mindset I had taken years to overcome and work through, and I'd done a lot of mental work and emotional prep work in order to take myself from a scarcity mindset to an abundant mindset. I was thrown back into scarcity mindset. I was in let's build wealth, let's get out of this situation, still on the mindset, the track to financial peace and financial freedom, but let's do it from a place of security. That's where I was coming from.
I very much believe that owning a business and entrepreneurship is the key for us to achieve the life that we want to live. A, we're very much interested in business and entrepreneurship. B, it is going to be the thing that builds our wealth and control over our time. The problem is that I had spent 7 years of my 20s out of the job market following a path that I had been told was the correct path to success and to wealth. Because I had been told that the path to success was to go to uni, study a double degree, which is a year extra of time, in order to get the best possible job in the best possible career to make the most money that you can. And that will be your ticket to success. I had spent 7 years at uni and realized at the end of it, once I was getting a job, that my career field as a lawyer doesn't actually get paid that much until you are at a much higher level, which is very difficult to get to if you are going to be starting a family. So I felt like I had wasted 7 years of potential earnings in the 7 years out of the job market, 7 years without a consistent full-time career income, which means I lost 7 years of investing. Whether that's in property or shares, I lost that 7 years. Because I felt so ripped off by that, I turned to online space to learn about another method of wealth building, because I was like, well, surely this is not it. Surely this can't be the only way. And I was learning all about business and entrepreneurship, and I fell into this second lie, this second narrative that you have to go all in on your business to be successful. And what that meant was that I lost another 5 years of income, another 5 years of being out of the investing market, another 5 years of not investing in property and investing very minimally in shares. So that's 12 years I had lost by not having an income. I'm telling you this to give you this background and this context as to why I so desperately needed us to have an income and to be on track to investing in property so that we could have that security whilst we continued on the entrepreneurship path.
What the stories online, the successful people online forget to tell you is that they are the lucky 1%. Their success story is, 75% skill and hard work and 25% luck and timing. I very much believe that luck is a mixture of timing and hard work and preparation. So yes, they did kind of manufacture their success, but at some point, luck and timing has to play a part. For every one of these successful people online, Gary Vee, Diary of a CEO, Stephen Bartlett, Cody Sanchez, Alex Hormozi, for every one of them, millions of people fail. Millions of people go all in. They take on debt, they put their family through financial ruin. Every one person that succeeds, millions fail. That's what these stories leave out, because that doesn't make for a good headline. That doesn't incentivize every single person who listens to their videos to follow suit and to buy their course and, strive to be like them. I'm not telling you this to say don't try. And I'm not saying that we are no longer going to try to build a business and succeed in the world of entrepreneurship. All I'm saying is that these people sell the new narrative, the new story of business or entrepreneurship as a fail-safe. They sell it like the only reason you're not wealthy is because you work a 9-to-5 job and you don't run a business. And it's actually really easy to run a business or to start a business. Cody Sanchez is there like, I started a business in a weekend. And if you actually watch that video, her window cleaning business, or she didn't actually do it. She just made it up that she did. Like, oh yeah, theoretically, if I got these people in, it would work. If I got these people on a subscription model, it would work. Theoretically. And she had to make calls to people that she knew. Like, it just blows my mind that they sell it like it's so easy. Like when you listen to Alex Hormozi and he's like, if you want to make $10 million in a year, you just have to crunch the numbers backwards. That's like, 7 sales a week of $20,000 per sale. That'll make you $10 million a year. Easy. Done. There's your business model. Like, sorry, it's not that easy. And if you sell it like it's that easy, you're setting people up for failure and also for shame. Like, there's something wrong with me because it didn't work. What these stories don't take into account, the successful 1%, they don't take into account the 5 to 7 years 10 years even, that you're out of the market in terms of investing property because you don't have an income, because you've gone all in on this business. That is a huge opportunity cost financially. So there we were, falling for this second lie, this second false promise of wealth. Falling for the new narrative that is pushed on social media because it's more glamorous. It sounds exciting and like you're doing something out of the norm. And we went all in on our business and we let the idea of property fall to the wayside. And thank God we had already done our research and didn't let investing fall to the wayside. Like, thank God we at least were still investing. We had to put pauses on it here and there when our income was really low. I think we worked out the other day we have 30K invested in stocks. So at least we have that. So we had let the idea of property fall to the wayside. We'd heard through the grapevine that as business owners, we needed to have 2 years of income, and we assumed that it needed to be like super high. I don't even think we had figures in our head of what that actually looked like. We were just like, we have to be earning 200K a year through this business. We didn't actually speak to a broker, and this was our first big mistake. We didn't actually know what was needed. We had zero clarity. We literally just assumed that it was so far out of reach, and we didn't do anything to verify that. We didn't know what was needed. We didn't know that there are actually workarounds to all of this. And we broke our first rule. Don't ignore your finances. Clarity is power. So property was always endgame in our mind, but it felt like it was years and years away. But when I was on mat leave, something was niggling at me. It didn't sit right with me that I loved personal finance, but I knew nothing about property. It bothered me that I was intentionally staying ignorant about something I knew was important, that I wasn't seeking out information. And it bothered me that I couldn't hold an intelligible conversation about property outside of like the buzzwords of housing affordability, and Queensland has really boomed, hasn't it? You know, I couldn't hold this sort of conversation, and that really irked me. So when I had that time gifted to me in a way, I remember feeling like I was robbed of time in that period of my life. But really, looking back, I was gifted time for all of those walks where Henry would only walk in the pram, where I could listen to podcasts. Generally speaking, I had noticed there was a general buzz of discontentment around property. The investors or landlords versus the renters and first home buyers. I noticed the tone of the discourse around this really shift, and it became bitter and very blame heavy. But I knew, just anecdotally from the investors I knew personally, that they were just families trying to make their way, and that they were doing it tough too. So something wasn't sitting right with me. Like, everyone always thinks of landlords as being like super rich, they own millions of properties, and like it means nothing to them. But here in Australia, we have a lot of mum and dad investors who are literally just trying to build a better life for their family, and they're doing it tough in order to have that investment property. They're sacrificing a lot in order to be there. So I decided the discourse wasn't matching the people that I knew, the stories that I knew, and I decided it was time for me to actually learn for myself and not just to like absorb what was going on in the media. It's all well and good to talk about the system and how oppressive it is and call it a day, because that sort of conversation makes us feel like we have enacted change. But the reality is that the property cycle is playing out whether we like it or not, because it is linked to much bigger forces, to global economics, to politics. And you can whinge about it and hope that things will change and never get ahead, becoming more and more bitter and feeling like you have no chance, no hope in the world. You become more resentful, more angry at the rich, in quotation marks, whoever they are, just becomes like this. Anyone who's not at my level or who isn't struggling like I am financially must be evil. It just becomes like this blanket statement, like it is the that sort of mindset, it really others people. Like, it becomes a divide, and you don't actually realize that those people are people, and yeah, they might be in a slightly better position than you financially, or they might own a property, but they might not actually be in a better position financially. There is nuance to people, and there's complexities, and there's layers. And yes, I started to realize within myself that, yeah, I can sit here and be resentful about the fact that we're not in the property market, and it feels like we're being shut out of the property market, and we're never going to own our own home. I could shake off that feeling, the feeling like it's all too hard. I can seek out people who have done it, and I can learn from them. And people are doing it. Even in this last 5 to 10 years, where that discourse has really steadily grown, that people are being locked out of the property market, people have gotten in. People have done it. So there is a way. It might be hard. It might require sacrifice. It might... I don't know. I didn't know what that looked like, but I was like, people are doing it. So how about I stop feeling sorry for myself and learn from them? So I started listening to podcasts, and the first one I started listening to just by chance was This Is Property. I think the only reason why I started listening to it was because they just didn't annoy me. Their voices weren't annoying. The way they spoke about things was relatively level-headed. There wasn't a lot of emotion in it, but they were still emotive enough that it was interesting. Anyway, John Pidgeon from This Is Property. Fantastic. I absolutely love, and I recommend that podcast a lot, especially if you're learning as a new person, new to property. I found it very beginner friendly. It wasn't all guru-y. It was just he gives off barefoot investor vibes, laid back Australian guy in his, I don't know, I don't want to offend him by trying to guess his age, but just very matter of fact and likable. So I started listening to that, became really convinced that property was our way. And I started to learn from the little things that John Pidgeon was saying, that actually there are ways to get into the property market, even if you don't have the full deposit, or you don't need a 20% deposit. You can actually use a 10% deposit. I didn't even know that. There are small things that I did not know were possible in order to get into the property market. It took me maybe 9 months of just listening to property podcasts and wealth building podcasts and all of that, and really getting back into that knowledge accumulation kind of mode to start to realize that property was something that might actually be closer than we at first believed. Once I started to realize that, I think it was about January of 2024, I remember going for a run. This is when I was just first getting back into running after hurting my back, and coming back and saying to Connor, this time next year we're going to buy a property. And at this point I was only working part-time. Connor didn't have an income, and we had hardly any savings. And he just sort of was okay, sure, yeah. And I was like, no, really, this time next year we are going to be buying a property. And this is where my brain and my mindset really shifted, because it became just from learning and listening and absorbing, I realized that it was a lot closer than I had originally thought, which meant even though we were in a bad situation, we had less than $10,000 saved, we had to live with my in-laws, we kind of didn't have an income, and I was part-time. That's an objectively bad financial situation. But I realized that with the right team around you, with the right knowledge, with a little bit of hard work and dedication, we were closer than we thought to getting into the property market. So I made it my personal mission to increase my income, because I was like, I need to really boost this income in order to have the servicing power, but also in order to save as much money as we could to actually get a deposit. So as I'm listening to this and I'm learning that you don't need a 20% deposit. You can have a 10% deposit with LMI, which is lender's mortgage insurance, which a lot of people see as like a fee or a burden. I personally see LMI as an entry cost. Like, it's better to be in the market and pay to get in than to wait 2 years until you can get your 20% deposit and miss out on that market growth. So I see it as like a cost of entry rather than like a fee or a burden. Once I had learnt just a few little things, and I think somewhere in a podcast John had mentioned like, oh, if you're an entrepreneur, you just need the right mortgage broker, like they'll be able to assist you in the right way. And I was like, okay, so maybe we can do it. Maybe we just haven't spoken to the right people or any people at that point in time. But I was like, okay, this is much more possible than I had thought. That shift in mindset did wonders for my ability to take the required action. It also just fueled my absolute desire to learn absolutely everything that I could about property and just absorb as much as I could in order to take the next step. So I started chatting to people I knew, my friends who I knew were into property, started really just not being afraid to ask silly questions about it either, because like the friends that I'm talking about, they are quite knowledgeable in property, and I was coming from a place of like, I know basically nothing outside of like what the media is saying. So I felt silly kind of trying to engage in these conversations, but I think like if you can push past that discomfort and hold the conversations even though they might not be up to like your standard or like how you want to be able to talk about these things, it will really accelerate your learning. So started having more conversations about it, and from that I got shared the Pumped on Property podcast, which has also been game changing in terms of just like understanding what's possible, really learning about aligning your values with your like savings journey, your property journey, in order to make it as seamless and consistent as possible. I think Simon from Pumped on Property, he's a really good example of what I was talking about earlier, where people have done it, like even at a time where I thought it wasn't possible or that we had been locked out of the market. So I think he bought his first property in 2017 or 2018, and he was quite young at the time, like 21 or something like that, and he was on quite a low income. I think it was on like 50k. I might have the real details of that wrong, but approximately it was that time he was that age with that income, like 2017, 21 with 50k, 55k annual salary. In 2017, I really believed that property was so far away from me, I would never get there, and I needed like a really high income in order to buy a property. Like, buying property was for people who had more income than 55k a year. But he managed to get in, and he's managed to build a fantastic portfolio with a really great strategy to bring him passive income and to replace his income. I guess what I'm highlighting that because like we now in 2025 look back at 2017 and go, oh, well, like, how lucky was he to buy at that time? Like, of course he could do it in 2017 with a 50k salary. But the point of me highlighting this is that I remember in 2017, in 2018, believing that that wasn't possible. But it was possible. I just wasn't looking in the right area, wasn't speaking to the right people, really just had no knowledge whatsoever. I just believed that it wasn't possible, and then therefore I didn't do the work and I didn't enter the knowledge accumulation phase. So this is step one of getting into property. It is really doing your research properly and making sure you have the right team around you. You're having conversations, you're asking silly questions, you are taking a step back, like a step out of yourself and away from the mentality of like, I'm never going to get there, we're all locked out of the market. Like, it's just impossible, that kind of mentality. Stepping away from that, like intentionally having to say like, this is how I feel and this feels like my reality, but I'm just going to like step back and pretend that it's not for a second. I'm just going to pretend that it's not and like see what if, you know, because yeah, I really had to step back from that belief. And then I had to seek out information for a long time. Like I was dabbling in property for about 9 months before I had that sort of laser focus on it, where I was like, we have to get into the property market in the next year. And then that's when I got really laser focused, and that's when I really started to absorb, and I really like was actively seeking out as much information as I could about this. So that knowledge accumulation phase is very integral. I know I've spent a lot of time on that, and like if you are listening to this because you are interested in starting your property journey, you might feel a bit underwhelmed by that first step or that first tip, but I can't tell you how like crucial it was to overcome the mindset barrier and the knowledge barrier and build the right team and have the right conversations and ask the silly questions. Because within that year, so from the time that I got laser focused, January 2024, I got laser focused on getting into the property market. By January of 2025, and you know, full disclosure, it's now the 8th of February and we haven't bought a property yet, but we are well on the train. We are like so close to getting there. And I'll share with you a few different, like we've literally just this week had to put it on pause for a month or two, which crushes me, because I was like, I had the goal of like early 2025, January 2025, I wanted to be buying, and I was so dedicated and I got so laser focused. I made the job change. I made that happen. I got the promotion or job change that I needed. I convinced Connor that property was the right path. He got a job so that he could boost his income and learn more about business. And like there was lots of different reasons, but one of those reasons was to have servicing power. And we got so laser focused on this and we made it happen. And I was so excited. January 2025, we were like so mid-January of 2025, that was our goal date, and like we were so close. We were so close to having it happen. And then we were thrown into a little bit of uncertainty, and as you may have guessed from the rest of my podcast, from the first hour and a bit of this podcast, I was talking a lot about security and taking steps forward from a place of security. And we received some news of uncertainty this week in terms of Connor's job. Like I mentioned, he's still in his probation period. He's in a late stage startup company. So there's just a little bit of uncertainty for the next 2 months until he passes that probation period. And so we've had to just say to our property team around us, like, we are just going to pause until that is well and truly resolved. So, past the probation period, and then we will keep moving forward. So that's a bit sad, and it's stressful to kind of be back in that like worry and that scarcity mindset. I can feel it creeping in, but I really have to fight against it and be like, I guess not fight against it, but like be like, yes, this is stressful, but we're going to get through it. And worst case scenario, we start looking for jobs again, and that is going to be tough. And it's going to be scary, but it's going to be okay. This episode is already a lot longer than all of my other episodes, so I might actually stop it there. And next week we will talk about step 2. So phase 1 or step 1 is really knowledge accumulation, understanding why you want to be on the property train, like have those core values identified, really resonate with them, because it is a hard, long journey. Like we are setting ourselves up. Like first you have to save really hard. It's a sprint season. You have to know why you're doing it. You have to have your values aligned with it. Secondly, it's not just about saving the deposit. You then actually have to pay off your mortgage for 30 years, you know, like, or like have some sort of strategy that helps you do that. But like, you have to be focused on really being financially sensible. So it's not just like get in, because everyone always says, oh, just get in, get your foot in the door, like get on the property ladder. Like, you just have to get into the market. That's the priority. But like, you forget that then you actually have to maintain your mortgage and pay that off. And in this sort of market with the living costs the way they are and the wages the way they are, and it is, you know, you're going to have holding costs. Even if you're not buying in Sydney, you know, you're still going to have holding costs. So you have to have your values aligned. You have to be laser focused, and you have to know that you can stay consistent and that you really, really want this for a very good reason. So that's the first step. The second step will be all about saving for that deposit and learning how you can get around the 20% deposit. We'll talk a little bit more about LMI, and yeah, we'll do that next week, because I think otherwise this will end up being like a 3-hour long podcast, and it's 5 o'clock, 5 to 5, and I have to get back to my little boy, to Henry. So we'll have to just cap it there, I think. Next week, we'll chat about how we saved our deposit, what we're doing to get around LMI, and maybe a little bit more strategy talk. But I think we're going to just, each episode, I think we're going to take like step by step by step. So if you are in the knowledge accumulation phase, some things that I will recommend to you. This is Property Podcast, John Pidgeon, fantastic. Pumped on Property, absolutely love. If you enjoy my podcasts and if you have similar goals, if you want to be outrageously generous with your time, with your resources, if you want to have financial freedom and peace, and you want to live a life on your terms, and you want to live the life that you were meant to live, you will love Pumped on Property. These guys, I align so much with their values, and I just love listening to them every week. I am a avid listener, religious listener. They just get it, and they talk about it in a way, it's so much more than just wealth building. Like, it's about achieving your dream life and doing that for your family and for the people around you, so that you can be so generous with your time and your money. So if I resonate with you, they will probably resonate with you. So give them a listen. Other things that I am looking into, the Secret Wealth Advantage, is one that I am struggling to read. It's tough. It's a tough read, I have to say. But I think like the more I try, the more I will understand. And another book that I have been recommended, which I have not read yet, but it is on my list to buy when I have a little bit more money in my fun account, is so The Secret Wealth Advantage I have not read yet. That's by Akhil Patel. That's on my list. The other one is The Secret Life of Real Estate. That is the one that's really hard, but that talks a lot about property cycles. So yes, they are, I feel like the people who listen to, who read these books are a little bit like, don't tell everyone. But I told you I'm here to let you in on everything I'm doing, give you complete transparency of my journey, and so I'm sharing it with you. So consider yourself lucky. Chat next week. Okay, love you, bye.